Start.
Gee, Bob, you know what? I'm going to start at the end. Why do you hate talking about UFOs?
Well, there's a few reasons. First of all, it's gotten pretty old. It's been, over a decade.
Yeah.
And second of all, I'm glad I was involved in the project for a short time, but, once you leave that and try and enter normal life, especially if you're peddling your services in research and development, the scientific field, it becomes really tough for people to take you seriously when you're known as the UFO guy. So it's just hard to kind of divorce all that stuff.
That's kind of the same problem that John Lear had, when he was working for the airlines. It finally got to the point where he had to say no more, and for years, of course, he didn't talk at all.
Right. I know he had a lot of problems with that, and I don't know. That's something people just don't take into account.
Got fired because of it from one airline.
Yeah, that's right. That's what I heard.
How do you now remember that special year with John, or maybe it was more than a year, but the period of time you spent with John and you went through all of that? How do you now remember that? Do you remember it fondly? Do you remember it as something you wish you hadn't done, or what?
Oh no, those are fond memories. It was fun and exciting back then. Before all the problems started and all the hassles from the feds and whatnot. But, back in the early days before all this became popular and Area 51 was on the tip of everybody's tongue, we were sneaking around out there when there were minimal security and whatnot, and I had the test flight schedule at that time, so we knew exactly what was going to happen and what was going on. And
well, you know what I'd like to know? Why did you, you at that time had a pretty damn good, secure job at an extremely secret place. What made you decide to grab John by the collar and say, hey, buddy, I can show you something? How do you make that choice?
I have to place myself back in that time. Well, it's one of that's kind of a loaded question, because there was a lot of stuff going on at that time. And, I kind of make a long story short. At the time, they were just calling me out, usually at night, on specific days to go out there when I initially started working down at the test site.
Right.
And, this was causing problems with my wife at the time, because I was keeping everything confidential, even from her.
Sure.
And, here 11 or 12 o'clock at night, I get this call, and I disappear. And, and this happens time and time again. And
where are you going, honey? I'm sorry, I can't talk about that.
Right. Yeah, I'm going to work. I'm sure you are.
Yeah.
And as this goes on for quite a while, suspicions begin to build up. And, I kind of kept my friends at arm's length at that time, because I just didn't want any problems. I wanted all the, this newfound security to go smoothly.
Sure.
And was pretty much playing with the game. So it started causing suspicion in my friends and, immediate family and that sort of thing. So I decided to take the risk one night and just bring everybody out close enough to where they could see a test flight when I knew a test flight was going on.
Yeah, but you had to know what you were risking, right?
Oh, I did. And, I can't really say what the actual motivation was back then, specifically what made it, what made me snap on that day. But
were you angry at them? Were you showing?
No, not at that point.
Were you showing off? There's nothing wrong with that, by the way. If that's what it was, that's what it was. I can understand.
No, it really wasn't that, and that would actually be an easy answer, but it really wasn't that. If I recall, we didn't start butting heads until after that.
Right.
But that was about it. I think it was to alleviate suspicion and show, several of my friends what was going on.
What was really going on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. How much, during those sojourns, how much did you actually get to see along with John?
While we were out of the area, or while I was actually working there in the area?
Well, yeah, they're two separate things. No, I meant when you took John and others up there. How is what you saw, was it convincing for those who came along with you? There was no question in their mind about what they were seeing.
Oh, no, there was no question. I mean, John hauled out his, even though we got much closer in than you can today near the area. Well, I have no idea what it's like today, but at least when I was last in Las Vegas a few years ago, you really couldn't get very far out on the road. But we drove in close to 10 miles, and you can't do that anymore. But John hauled out his Celestron 10-inch telescope, and from there it was quite a view.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and you were seeing saucers?
A saucer, yeah.
A saucer.
Mm-hmm.
Hovering, moving?
Yeah, mm-hmm. It just lifted off the ground and hovered around.
Do you have any idea, now of course you actually, it's another story, but I mean you of course got in to see the real McCoy. You saw how many saucers ultimately at S4?
Oh, there were 9 total.
9 total.
But, these were seen at a distance. The only one I actually had direct contact with was the one that was being test flown.
Uh-huh. Do you have any idea how they sufficiently back-engineered whatever in the hell they found inside that saucer to be able to test fly it? Do you have any idea what went on to learn about? I mean, there must have been... I mean, what was it like inside this thing? What was it like? If you were standing there looking at it inside, what would you be seeing?
Well, I guess the most shocking thing about it is everything was one color. There was no aesthetics at all. Everything was a light gray, and it was as if, and I've said this before, it was as if the entire device was carved out of wax, heated for a bit and cooled off. There were no sharp edges, no right angles. Everything was rounded and smooth, both inside and out. There are no seams or anything like that. It
like it had been done from a mold or something?
Right, like a giant injection mold of some sort. But, so that's it. I mean, that was probably the most obvious thing you'd notice when you walk in there. It just didn't look conventional at all.
Any idea, again, I mean, from that, could you see, but how did they navigate this thing? Were there buttons? Were there joysticks? Were there, what sort of...
I have no idea.
No idea?
No.
And so you would have no idea then how they back-engineered. It would have to be a pretty dangerous thing to take a craft that you just had and try to figure out how to fly the damn thing.
I imagine so, and from the stories I've heard, that it was quite a dangerous thing. But unfortunately, a lot of this went on way before I ever got there. And obviously, they had at least found out to some extent how some of the systems and subsystems operated.
Mm-hmm. Do you know how they got their hands on these in the first place? I mean, how did they get them?
I don't know. Unfortunately, a lot of the information's compartmentalized, so no one person has the whole story about everything, and that's typically done in any government project.
Absolutely.
So nobody can walk away with, the whole project or knowledge of everything. But, I wish I had the complete picture of what was going on. Even just smaller pieces to the picture I did have. I would be very interested in how the navigational system operated. That still kind of puzzles me, as do flight controls and things of that sort.
And propulsion? This element, what is it, 116?
115, yeah.
115. Element 115. Do you have any concept of how the propulsion system did what it did? I know how a jet plane moves from A to B and so forth and so on. I mean, how was this element 115 used to move the craft? What kind of propulsion system is it?
It's a gravity propulsion system, something that's completely alien to us, if you don't mind me saying that.
That's a good word, yeah.
Instead of an